Hi everyone, I know it's been a while since I posted something on this channel, but I finally got around to Something Like Autumn by Jay Bell, and this is going to be my review on it. But I just want to say the reason why it took so long is I've been so busy with school, and I just got a new job, and it's around the holiday season, so it's hectic, and I'm training, and I've been really busy between those two with midterms and stuff, so but I finally got around to reading the book in between classes and whenever I had free time, and I finally finished it last night. Also, yes, I want to mention I did cut my hair. It looks kind of a mess because when I have short hair it's very hard to maintain, so I apologize for that. But anyways, on to the review. If you want to see my review on the previous books by Jay Bell, Something Like Summer and Something Like Winter, there will be annotations that will link you to my other channel that have them on there. Okay, so Something Like Autumn. I actually was given this book by Jay. I couldn't afford it at the time, and he was so gracious and sent me a free copy, and I was just so shocked and so overwhelmed and so grateful by how nice you are. And I couldn't believe it. I was like, oh my gosh, thank you. And to be able to read it was an incredible experience, and I am so happy that I finally did. This story was so different from the other two that it was really awesome to see a new fresh start and a new story within an old story, you know, because it's the backstory of Jase. And I am not gonna lie, when I first read Something Like Summer, I'm obviously not gonna like Jase as much as I should because he got in the way of Ben and Tim, but then seeing Tim's story as well and seeing Jase's story or his thoughts on the matter and his perspective, I really like Jase. And I know I shouldn't have been an asshole about it in the first book because, you know, there's always two sides of the story, but this time there's kind of three, and it was interesting to see his perspective on it. But I gotta say, I really love Jase. I appreciate him more than I did in the first two books, and I love seeing his backstory. I love his relationship with his sister and his family and his best friend Greg, who's like really fucking awesome because he was kind of like ignorant in a way that he didn't know. Not that he chose to be an asshole, but he just didn't know, and then he realized he was being an asshole, and him and Jase became closer as friends, and oh, that was awesome. I thought it made the story just much better because I'm glad that Jase had a whole support system. Also his relationship with Victor, which we never found out in the first two books, so it's like a whole new love story, and it was so different from how Ben and Tim grew up coming out and whatnot. But to see Jase's story so different with Victor was really interesting. And I like that Victor was totally different type of person from you know, Tim. Like, let's say Tim, for example, because he was Ben's romance person. To see him so opposite is just, it was so awesome how Jay can write such different characters and personalities, and it's like, I loved it so much. I don't even have words to describe it. I love the backstory and their whole crazy rockiness, that even though Victor didn't want commitment, he still loved Jase very much, and he very openly admitted, but then Jase was never one to say he loved the boyfriends he had, like Victor or Adrian, and then he finally got to say I love you to Ben. And then the ending, this is why I was probably reluctant to read this book in general, because I knew what was going to happen to Jase, and I knew what was going to be his inevitable death, and I didn't want to read that because I knew it was going to be a sad ending, and I don't like sad endings, but I did love the story regardless. And I was so shocked to find out that Victor killed himself, and it's such a not really poetic, but I don't know if ironic, I'm trying to think of the word, where it's like foreshadowing, because in the beginning Jase was going to kill himself, but then was rescued by Bernard, who is also another great part of the story, another great support system for Jase. I just love that he had a huge support system. Anyways, but then to see that Bernard saved Jase's life ultimately, even though he couldn't save his own son, and then to see Victor kill himself maybe not only because of Jase, but because of, you know, Victor's mother and her situation and stuff and his life, and he can't take care of himself and never really could and grow up and didn't want to grow up. And I just thought that part of the story was really symbolic and really sad, because I kind of figured something was going to happen with Victor and Jase from the beginning, that they weren't going to end up together because of how Jase ended up in the end with Ben, of course. So I knew something was going to happen, but I didn't think it was going to be something like that. I was really sad about that. I was like, I was reading this book and I'm like, what? No! No. But I kind of also like the pacing of this book, because it wasn't repeating the same things that happened like in something like Summer, where it was Ben's story with Jase. There were snippets of things, and I think that was good. There were some recap moments, because it's been like 2 years since I read something like Summer and then something like Winter, so in my mind when I read something like Autumn, I was in something like Winter mode, because that was the last book I read of the series, so I kind of forgot some things. So to be able to recap sort of Ben's life also into Jase's book was good. So I really also like the pacing, like I said, because it wasn't just after Victor dies we see him grieving. There was a little bit of it, but it wasn't a lot. And then it's fast forwards. Also, when he wanted to be a flight attendant, he talked about you know, maybe becoming one, and then he finally, years later, he passes time and then he is a flight attendant. You don't really get to see the in-between. I also thought when I found out that Samson was Victor's cat, I'm like, holy shit, this is, some shit's gonna happen. That was another clue. So I was like, holy bananas. Whoa, more symbolism here. That was, his writing is so effing good. I'm just like, this is like the perfect book series for me, because it is just fucking epic, and I can't wait for the 4th one, so bring it on, man, bring it on. But this book was just so good. I honestly don't know if I have a favorite. Well, I think I do. I want to say something like Winter, because I love seeing Tim's story, but I love Jase so much. I love him. This book just made me appreciate him so much more, and how he handled when Ben cheated on him with Tim, and then after they kind of broke up and then he went back to Tim, how he handled that. Because in the first book it's like, why is he so forgiving so quickly? And then in the 3rd book we see why he was, because of the same thing he would have done if Victor was alive. Because Victor is always going to be his first love. Even though Ben is the love of his life, he's always going to have that tie to Victor, because Victor was who he was as a teenager and coming to figure out himself and whatnot. So this is probably the book that made me cry. Like, I cried at the end, because I knew it was gonna happen, but the way to see, because like I said, I've kind of forgot something in something like Summer, and how sad his death was, and how quickly Jase accepted death, in a sense, because he didn't want to hurt Ben anymore, and he didn't want to suffer anymore, for Ben to suffer anymore, and all his family and friends to suffer anymore, and himself. And the way he just kind of accepted it was interesting to see in his perspective. That was, oh god, I cried so hard at the end, because here I am at the last sentence, or the last couple words, and I'm just like, and then I just waterfalls, okay? And then I just sat there in my bed just going, I feel like just sitting next to this book, and I'm like, what the fuck just happened? And I didn't want it to end. I really didn't, but I knew I set myself up for pain. So I mean, I always wanted Ben and Tim together, but to see Ben and Jase together was also really great. But I kind of always want, in my heart, I think that Victor and Jase will always be, and that now they're together. I kind of was I was kind of thinking that they were going to mention at the end, or maybe Ben never knew about Victor, and maybe Jase wanted it that way, but I kind of figured at the end he was going to say now he's with Victor, in the other world or whatever, if that exists, but maybe that was implied, so That's what I think as the audience member, that he will now be with Victor forever. Yeah. So, really great book, really great story. As always, Jay, I loved it so much. I wanted to hug it at the end and just get a bucket of Rocky Road ice cream and watch a chick flick and cry some more, because it was an emotional roller coaster, but I loved it so much. I loved that I didn't expect to love it so much, because you just assume that Jase is the guy that got in the way, but really he was something much more better of a person than anyone would have thought, and he was just an incredible person, an incredible character, an incredible story to read, and a backstory, and all his wonderful little quirks and bits of him. I just loved him so much, and yeah, it's sad that he's not an existent character anymore. Does that make sense? But I'm really excited for the 4th book. I cannot wait. I'm assuming it's going to be about Ben and Tim more currently, or what happens after something like Winter, but I'm still going to be a little sore after Jase's death, even though we know what happens with Ben and Tim after his death and how Ben moves on, but still always will have a heart for Jase and his love for Jase, because he was his husband. But it's going to be bittersweet, because you know, in something like Summer, I'm like, oh, that's really sad. Why did he have to die? And then he moves on and finally gets to be with his soulmate, which is Tim. But seeing that, how sad Jase died, and how I really didn't want him to die at all, I just was like, no, he's supposed to live on forever, even though Victor couldn't. Life and death is a cruel-hearted bitch. I think one of the messages I got from this story was, life is too short, and you should spend it with the people you love, and spend the time doing things that you love, no matter what people think, because it's your life, and if you want to live it the way that you want to do it, then go right ahead. And I think that you can change your mind, and you can change the way you think, and that's not wrong, and it's okay, and it's normal. So do what you want, because who cares what other people think? You only have so much time on this earth. So Jay, you are an amazing writer, and you're very inspirational and a very wonderful person, and I just want to thank you so much for not only writing these incredible books that I get to read and sit down and enjoy and love and obsess over, but also you're just a great person. I just want to thank you again so much for sending me this copy, and I have been just so happy loving it and enjoying it, and happy and sad tears crying over it. So please go read Something Like Summer, Something Like Winter, and Something Like Autumn, and eventually Something Like Spring. I cannot wait for the 4th book, and I loved the first 3 so much. I have been obsessing over these books for the past 2 years, and I cannot wait for the 4th one and the series to complete, even though it is a bittersweet thought. I look forward to whatever else you write in the future. Thank you for watching and subscribing. If you want to see my reviews on Something Like Summer and Something Like Winter, you can go check them out, and I really hope that you start to read Something Like Autumn or the Something Like series if you haven't already. Please go do it. I'm telling you, you will not regret it. It is one of the best books I have read, and one of my favorite books of all time. I will see you guys soon, whenever that may be.